Welcome to this beginner tutorial in which we will build this job tracker. So in a previous tutorial we also built a job tracker, but this is an upgraded version with user login, sign up and database storage. So let's dive right into it. So at the moment I'm in an empty project folder, and in this part we will set up the backend. So for this we first need a package.json file, and this project it has two parts. First the backend and the front end, and the backend is an API in Express which has the database access, and the front end is built with React, Tailwind CSS, and yeah. So first we need to go into the backend directory, and then we have to init a file. We're adding this -y at the end, and this is the starting file for our API. And in this one we have to add some things. So first we have to specify that this is a module, so we can use the new import syntax instead of the require syntax. And then we have to install some packages. npm install. We have to install express.env, mongoose. For the database we are using MongoDB. Of course, that's for the API because this is a common error, so I will just implement this this package, so you don't have to sit there and ask yourself why it won't work. Then we need cookie parser. That's so we can access the cookies and change them. Then we need the JSON Web Token. That's for the user authentication. That's just the web standard and JavaScript standard library. Then we are using bcrypt.js to encrypt the password, and then we are using nodemon. This is a dev dependency, and nodemon is basically, it will restart the whole backend every time when we make a change. So yeah. Then after we installed everything, we need to change the scripts. We need a dev script, and there we are saying nodemon run, and then we need to create the file. So inside there we are making a source directory, and inside the source directory we are creating the index.js. So in there we can console log something like test, and then we are saying nodemon run source/index.js. Save this. Save this. Override. And npm run dev. Then you can see the test, and it's waiting for changes. So then we confirm that the index.css is run. We are creating the routes directory. So we have different routers. That's just the best practice because we have the authentication routes for the user, and then the add, remove and get routes for the jobs. And it's just the best practice to separate them to make the code clearer. So in the routes directory, we are creating auth.routes.js. This .routes, you could leave it out, but it's also the best practice to specify that it's a router which is in this file. So then for the routes, we import express from express, and then we are saying auth router express.router. So this is our router which we initialized, and then we can create a test route, and inside this we could add a function, and because it's just a test route, we are adding an arrow function, and inside there we can say response.send success, and then at last we export default, if you type it, default the auth router. So we are using, or every API is using, so-called HTTP methods. The common ones are get, post. So get, you get stuff, so you are just getting the response normally. Then post is something, it's like you add something to a database. Then put is that you are updating, and delete is deleting and removing an item. Those are the common four. And in this test route we are using the .get, so we are using a get HTTP request. So now nothing will happen. We can't really try to access this API endpoint because we didn't import anything in the index.js. So in the index.js we are also importing express, and import, and then we're saying app, that's the main express app, express. And you can see in the auth routes we are initializing a router, and in the index, in the main app, we are initializing express. So yeah, and then we can say app.use. So the app.use is a function from express, and in there we can add routers and middleware. So a middleware is some code which is which get run between the API point and the function from behind the API point. So when we are saying here we want the stuff from /test, and we have some middleware, first runs the middleware, then this inside /test. Yeah. And you can also add the router there. Then the last thing is app.listen. So this is basically, when we run this, the app will listen on a specific port. In this project I would say it's 5001. And we have to ping this port, so localhost 5001/test, to access this API point. And then we are adding an arrow function, and inside there we can say console.log server is running. Then we have to import the auth router. So what we can say in the app.use/API/auth. And then we are adding the auth router, and we have to import it out there. So now you can see there's the server is running, and this in front, this /API/auth, what it's doing is it's basically, if we want the /test endpoint, we can't get it with localhost 5001/test. We have to use the localhost 5001/API/auth/test. Yeah, and so it will say for every route which is in the auth router, we have to add in front. We have to add in front of the route. We have to add these /API/auth. And now you can see with the console.log thing in the index.js, after the test log, it's waiting. So nodemon is waiting for any changes because the script finished. And now there isn't anything is waiting because the script isn't finished. It's still listening constantly on this 5001 for any request. And now we can check if we set up ExpressWrite. For this I'm using Postman. That's an HTTP client. You can use any other client. There are a lot of them out there. I've linked this one in the description. And first we can say http //localhost 5001/API/auth/test. That's because we are saying we need the /API/auth, and the /test is the API point in the authored routes. Then, which is the next thing you want to consider, it's the HTTP methods. And in the authored routes, we are saying it's a get message, a get function, so we are using get. Then we can send this, and the response is success and 200. So with this 200, that's the status code of the request, especially the response. And the 200, it means okay, so that was a successful request. So now we finished setting up Express, and in the next part we are connecting to our database and programming the sign up. Before we are connecting to the database, we have to add some middlewares. So first of all, we are saying app.use to add a middleware to our Express app. And the first one is built in Express one, so we are saying express.json. That's so we can send and receive JSON. Then we have to import some things, and first we have to import course from course, and then we have to import cookie parser and then we are also saying app.use the cookie parser, and for the course we are saying course, and then inside of this, for this function, we need to specify some options, and we are adding curly brackets because it's a JavaScript object. So first we are saying origin, and the origin of our front-end app, that's basic. So for our front-end app, that's http://localhost, and the port is 5173. So for the port, you should add your own port on which your React app is running later. And then we are saying credentials true. So this basically says that it won't block any requests from this URL. Yeah. Oh, there's an error. Cookie parser. Cannot find. Yeah, we. Oh, yeah. No capital letter, yes. So now for the database. So first we create a lib directory, and inside of this lib directory we are creating an env.js. So MongoDB, for this database you need a connection string, and with that connection string you can connect everything to this database, and you don't want this string to be public available to everyone, because then everyone can do anything with your database for this project. So for that we are setting up environmental variables, and for environmental variables we installed the .env package earlier. So we import this one, and then so we say .env.config, and then we export const and curly brackets and equals process.env. So environmental variables are stored in the .env file. So we are creating this one, and inside of this we can say MongoDB URI equals a string, and we can also add a port variable where we can say 5001. Then inside of the env.js we are adding this one to the curly brackets, port MongoDB URI, and then inside of the index.js we can import the inside of curly brackets, because it's not a default export. We can import the ports from ./lib/env.js, and then down there we can change the 5001 in the app.listen to the port variable, and we are changing the string which we are logging to this one, so we can add a variable inside of the string. So to do that we are adding the $sign and then curly brackets behind it, and then inside of those we are adding the port, and then if we save this you can see server is running on 5001, which is the port which we specified. So then we have to create our database file in the lib folder. So we're saying db.js, and inside of there we are importing mongoose from mongoose, and we are importing the MongoDB URI from this file. Then we are exporting a function which is called connect. So it's an arrow function with no parameters, and inside of there's a try and catch block. So for the catch part we can say console.log error and a $sign and the curly brackets again, curly brackets, and then we can say error, which is up there in the catch. And then for the try we are saying const con await. So this is an async function up there, async await mongoose dot connect, and then we are adding the Mongo URI, and then we are logging something like MongoDB connected, and then the $sign curly brackets. Then we are saying con dot connection dot host, and we can save this. Then we are going to mongodb.com, creating a new project. You can name it something like advanced job tracker tutorial. And we're going to next. You have yourself as the project owner, create project, and then you are getting to this, and for the database we need to create a cluster, so we're going there. You can use the free tier, that's totally enough for a portfolio project, or especially for this one. You can choose the nearest region for yourself, so I live in Germany, and then the name you can leave it like that. Create the deployment, you can copy the password, create the database user. Then we are choosing a connection method, which are the drivers, so mongoose, and then you need to wait. You don't have to install MongoDB because we are using mongoose. So then when your cluster is ready, you are copying this whole thing. If you have this turned off, you need to, so either you can turn it on, then there is your password auto-filled in. Otherwise you should have copied your password, and then you change this DB password to your password. So you copied this string, and then you're going to the .env file and add it to your MongoDB URI. Then we have the MongoDB URI string, and after that we have to call this function, and we are calling it in the index.js. Under the console log we call connect, and from the lib it's a function, saved it, and you can see we are connected to our MongoDB cluster. Next, we have to create a new folder in the source directory called models, and we are creating user.model.js. So inside of this, we are creating a so-called schema. That's like a blueprint for our database entries. So we are importing Mongoose, and then we are saying const user schema new mongoose.schema. Then inside of the schema we are adding an JavaScript object. So we are adding curly brackets, and every user has three important things. First, the full name, an email, and the password. So we're adding full name and a JavaScript object behind this. First, we have to specify the type. So in this case, it's a string. And then we are saying required is true. So if we don't create the full name for a new object, we get an error because it's required. Then we are doing the same thing for the email. The type is also a string, and it's also required true. And so every user needs some specific label. So every object has an ID, and for the user we are also adding the email as an unique identifier for this schema. So we're adding unique and setting this to true. So now we can also find the specific user by searching with the email. And if we want to add the email twice in our database, we also get an error. So we don't have to check each time. It does it automatically. Then we are adding the password. That's also a string. And it's also required. And then that's all for this one. But we have to add something. So we have to, what we also want to do is, we also want the timestamps when this user was created, or when it was created, or when it was changed, but we don't program the changed function in there. And so for the timestamps, we are saying timestamps equals true. So that's all for the user schema. Now we have to initialize an object for this model. So we are saying mongoose.model, and we are saying user schema. You have to be careful with the capital letters and stuff. So the user schema has to be, so if it's capital you will get probably an error. And the user has to be a capital letter, and the variable in front, it doesn't really matter. And then we are exporting this user as a default, and that's all for the user model. Then we create the controller directory inside of the SUS directory, and we are creating inside of this the auth.controller.js. So we could add the logic for our sign up function inside of the auth routes the auth routes. So inside of this we could add the logic. It will work. But it's a really bad practice, and normally you are creating a function and in the controller, so sign up, it is an async function. It has two parameters, request and response. I don't know why it does that one. Request and response, and it's an arrow function. So normally you do something like this, and then you are importing this function in the router folder, in the router file. So for that, we first create the endpoint. So we are saying router.post because we are creating a new user, post. We are saying /sign up, and then we say we want the sign up function to be called when we are getting a request to this endpoint. And we save this, and you can see it is still working. So now for the sign up function. So first we want to extract the variables like full name, our email, and the password, email, from our request from the body, because we are sending it in the body as a JSON file, so we want to get those three. Then we are adding a try and catch block, and inside of the catch we can say console log error in sign up controller, and we are in the end we are logging the error.message. So also this error in the sign up controller, that's also quite an important thing, because when you have 4 or 5 functions in this file and it just says, yeah, there's an error in the auth controller, you're quite lost. But when you know, oh, it's in the sign up function, then you know it's in this and not in the other 3 or 4 functions. So now for the try block. So first we want to check if all of these 3 variables are existing. So we are checking if this exclamation mark, it's the negation. So if there's no full name, then we are saying or. We can do this with these 2 pipes, or no email, or no password. So the normal if block in JavaScript would be something like this, and then we would add a return statement inside of this. But because the if block is just 1 line, we can add it behind the normal brackets, and we can say return with the response of a status of 400 and then we are saying .json. So we are responding with JSON, and inside of this we are saying message, and the error message is all fields are required. Then we don't want the password to be too short. So we are saying if password.length is lower than 6. So you can add anything you want. You can add like 4 or 10, anything. Then we are saying return response.status. You can just copy the return thing above. The status is the same one, and then just the message is a different one, and we can say password must be at least 6 characters. Then if the password is long enough, we check if the user exists already. So we are saying await user. So we have to import this one. That's the model which we defined earlier. Import user from ... So we are in the source directory models / user model.js, and we are saying user dot find one, and we are passing down the email because it's the unique part of the user. So basically what this line says, yeah, this model, you find one user which has the same email, and because every email is unique, if there's no user, there's no, and if there's one, there's just one. So then we check if there's a user, and then if there's a user, we return an error. We are saying status of 400, and the message is something like email already exists. Okay, and now we checked if we have every variable and if the user exists, and now we are going over to creating the user. So first of all, we need to decrypt the password, encrypt the password, and we are using the JavaScript package called bcrypt, and we are hashing our password. So for a hash, you need the string which you want to hash and a so-called salt. That's like a key. So we are generating a salt. We also are using await because the bcrypt function is an asynchronous function, and the user.findOne is also asynchronous, by the way. So await bcrypt. Yeah, we also need to import this one. Import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Await bcrypt.gensalt, and now you can add the length of your salt. I would just say it's 10 characters long. Then we can say const hashed password is equals await, because it's also an asynchronous function, bcrypt, I can't type, bcrypt.hash, and then we are passing the password and our salt which we generated. Then we are creating our new user. New user is equals to a new user which we imported from our model, and then we are adding in curly brackets, and we are saying yes, full name. So you can either do full name and then you're adding the variable which is also full name, so you can just leave that and just pass the full name down. For the email, the same one, but now we want to pass down our hash password, but we don't want the password to be stored for to be stored in the variable called hash password in our MongoDB cluster. So we're saying password, and then we're saying the hash password. So this basically says we are storing password. I can type. We are storing our hash password, and the variable is called password in the database. Yes. And now, after the user, we want to check if the new user exists. So if there's a new user, we will generate, I can't type, generate a token, or a JWT token, and we are passing down our new user ._ID. So MongoDB's model system, or rather Mongoose model system, you don't have to add the ID as an extra argument. It is automatically created for you when you are adding a new entry, and the variable is _ID, which is which it is stored. So yeah, and then the generate token, that's a function which we need to program. So in the lib directory, we are adding a new file called utils.js, and inside there we are importing JWT from JSON Web Token, and then we are importing an environmental variable, or two. So the first one is JWT, and it's the secret, and the node env from /env.js, but we have to initialize them first. Inside here we are just saying JWT secret, and it's a string, and you can add anything you want. So for test things, we are just saying secret, which is the secret. But later when we deploy this app, I will show you a site which will generate you a random key, which is more secure than the secret thing. Then we are saying node env is equals to development. Okay. And then these two, we have to export them in the env.js. Node env and the JWT secret. Then back in the utils, we are exporting the variable generate token. It is an arrow function, and it has two parameters. First, it has the user ID, and it has the response, which we'll send back to our app. So first we are creating the token, and we are saying JWT.sign. So this .sign function will generate the token, and first we are passing the user ID, then we are passing down our JWT secret, and then we are passing down an expire state, so that after a specific period you have to log in yourself again. So you can add any amount of days or hours. I'm adding 7 days. So after 7 days of inactivity, you have to log yourself in again. And then we are saying response.cookie. So for this we've added the cookie parser middleware. For the cookie, first we are giving it a name, we're calling JWT. Then the variables called the variable token, and then some parameters for this cookie. So the max age, so for this cookie is 7 days, but so this is in milliseconds. So you can see it up here, max age is in milliseconds. So we're saying 7 days times 24, so now it's in hours, times 60, it's in minutes, times 60 in seconds, and times 1000, now it's milliseconds. Not that. Then we are saying HTTP only, so that's for security, so it's harder to hack your app. Then we are saying same site is true. No, it's not true, it's strict. Then we are saying secure, and that's when node env is not equal to the development. So this last, at the moment it's false because it is equal, but later when we will host it, we will development, it will be true. So yeah, and then at the last thing we are returning the token. Back in the auth controller, we need to pass the response to the generate token function. Then we are saving the user, so await new user dot save. So now the user is in the database, and after that we are sending back a status of 201. So this is the status when we created some database entry, and we are saying JSON, and then we are saying ._id is equals to the new user ._id. Oh, the dot is wrong. Then full name is the new user dot full name, and then at last parameter is email. That's the new user dot email. So we are not passing the password pack because that's that's not really secure in any way. And then we are adding an else. So if there is an error in the thing, then we are sending back a status of 400, and we are saying JSON. It has a message, and we are saying invalid user data. So this error message will be sent when we can't create the new user for some reason. So that's all for the auth controller. So we can save this file. And then we also connected the signup route with the signup function. So when we are going to our HTTP client and we are selecting post/auth/signup, then we have to go to the body and we are saying, yeah, we need the raw one. not the binary, the raw. And we have JSON, so this. And then we are saying, yeah, our full name is equals to John Doe. Then we are adding an email, which is johndoe@gmail.com. We need to email. And then we have the password, and that's test12. Then we can send this one. Oh, we're seeing all fields required. Okay, so the first problem was that you have to change this from text to JSON. So that's the format. And then we forgot to import the generate token function. So import import generate token from dot slash lib slash utils.js. When we save this and we are trying again, you can see 201 we created this thing. Then if we look at our overview, we can refresh, and then you can see there's this browse collection. So we're going in there, there's our users, and you can see there's the John Doe user with the email and our ID and the hash password. So that was it for the sign up part. The next thing is login, logout, and the check auth function and routes. In this part we are creating the login, logout, and the check authentication route. So first we are going to the auth controller and we are creating these three functions. So it's login. This is also an asynchronous function with the request and the response. And then we have the logout function. The logout function is a normal arrow function, and then we have the check authentication function, which I will call check, and it is also a normal function. I can type. Yeah. Okay, then we are creating the routes. So we can delete the test route, and then we are saying auth router dot post slash login, and we are saying we want the login function from our controller. Then we have the logout function, which is also with post slash logout, and we are also importing this one. And then last we have the check, which is a get with slash check, and the check function, which we also import. So now we can close this. So first, for the login function, we need, similar to the signup function, we need the data from the request body And for the sign up, we need the password and the email, and it's equal to the request.body. Then we have a try and catch block. Inside of this catch part, we are saying console error in the login controller, and we are also logging the message, the error message, and then we have a response with the status of 500, which is the normal status for an internal server error, which is also the message which is sent back. So that's just internal server error. Then in the try block, we are looking if the user is already in our database. User dot find one with the email. Then we are checking if there is a user. User dot status 400 JSON message, and that's invalid credentials. So you don't want to give the user the information which one of these credentials is wrong or is invalid, because if that's some hacker or then they know that, for example, the email is correct and the password not, or the password is correct and the email is not, which is some much more dangerous way. Then we are checking if the password is correct. So if password correct equals await, that's an asynchronous function from bcrypt, and bcrypt has this function called compare. And first we are giving the password which we got from the request.body, and then we are giving the hash password from the database user, and bcrypt will hash the password from our request body and then compare those two. Then we get back true or false, so we are using an if statement. If is password is not correct, I typed it wrong, correct, then we return a 400 status of 400, and we are also saying invalid credentials. Then we want to generate our web token, so we are passing down the user._id and the response, and then response.status 200, which is the OK status, and we are saying the message. Oh no, we are passing not a message, but we are passing back the data of the user. So we have access to this data in the app. So first we are passing back the ID, then the full name, user.full name, and lastly the email. And for the same reasons as in the sign up, we are not passing back the password. And that's all for the login function. So we can test this in Postman, and we can say login, and we delete the password. Oh no, that's the wrong part. We need to delete the full name and the password. And the password test is12, and then we send, and you can see the response is 200 okay, and we got the our data back. And if we go to the, where is it? If we go to the cookies, right, there's our JWT token, which we generated up here. So now for the logout function, we have a try and catch block. Try and catch. Error. And then I will just copy the catch part because it's always the same. So first we are console logging error in the logout controller with the error message, and then we are responding with the status of 500 and saying internal server error. Then we want to access the cookie from our response, which we are sending back, and we are saying the JWT token, and we are setting it to an empty string, and we are setting the max age, which we set before in the generate token. We set it to 7 days, and now we are setting it to 0. And then we are responding with a status of 200 and with the message logged out successfully. Logged out successfully. We save this, we can test it. So the logout, it is post, so we can leave this, but we don't need that one, and we have to change this, logout, send. And if we change it back to the body, you can see logged out successfully, and in the cookies, no cookies, because we deleted basically the JWT cookie. And then lastly, for the check part, that's a function which we need later to auto log in the user when they visit the homepage and the cookie didn't expire. So first we need a try and catch block, and then the catch part, as always, we say error in the check controller with the error message, and we are sending back status of 500 and internal server error. Then in the try part, we are saying response.status of 200.json, and we are just sending back the request.user. So if we log in, and with the, that's the wrong stuff, with the email johndoe@gmail.com and the password $200 and okay, so we are logged in, and then we check. Not found, because the check route is a get route and not a post route. So we have to change this post to get. and we can see 200. Okay, that's it for this part. In the next part, we are creating the job routes and the job model and the function for the routes. So for the job routes, let's start by creating the router in the routes directory. So we're saying job.routes.js, and then we are importing Express.
Du Sebi, komm mal eine Viertelstunde raus und mach nochmal einen Durchzug, dass du da mal wieder ein bisschen bessere Luft kommt. Mach das mal bitte.
Mhm.
Ja, mach's aus. Sag nicht immer.
Okay. So for the job routes, let's start by creating the router inside of the routes directory, and first we import Express, and we will create the router. Express, not that. And then we will export this one, and we have 3 routes. So jobrouter.get, the first route is the get route. That's where we get all jobs by the user ID. That's also the function name. And then we have the add route. So when we are creating a new job, so we are typing /add, and the function is create. And then the last one, when we delete, we are saying jobroute.delete /delete, and we are adding a parameter. So we are doing this by adding the job ID. So the parameter is called job ID, and then the function is remove. So now we want to create a new controller. So it is job.controller.js. Then we can create the functions. Add this an asynchronous function, request response, and it's an arrow function. Then we have the delete. Delete. It is also asynchronous. Was habe ich da getippt? Genau. Right, and then yes, we have to call remove, because delete is an already implemented function name from a library. And then the last one, get by user ID. It's also asynchronous. Request response, and is that. And then after this we can import those inside the create inside. Ah, yes, I called it add. Yeah. And then the last, remove. .js. So now, after we connected those two, we can close the job.routes. And we need to create the job model. So the job model is a little more complex than the user model. So we start the same way, importing Mongoose. And then we are saying const job scheme new mongoose dot schema, and we're adding a JavaScript object. So now we have to connect the user and the jobs from the user, so we know which one we want to render when a user is logged in. So for that, every job has a user ID. Wait, slow again. And the type is mongoose dot schema dot types dot object ID, because the user IDs, so the IDs are not saved as a string or something similar, but rather as an object ID. You can see it. Those is a string with these things, and the object ID is an own variable or something like that. Yeah, a known type, own variable type. And then after we specify the type, we need to specify the reference for which database model it is referenced to, and it is a reference for a user. And then we are saying it is required to true. Then we have the job name, and we have the company name, and then we have a place. We have a link for the website of the company. I think I made it, yeah. And then we have a boolean if we applied already, and then another boolean if the job has any remote opportunities. Then the job name is a string, and it is required. The company name also, the place too, and the thing is the same. Then for the applied, this is not required, and the type is a boolean. If you could, boolean. So boolean is true or false, always. Then boolean. Oh, I imported this. We don't need that. And then that's it for the job schema. Now we have to initialize the model and export it. Job and job schema, and then we export default job. That's it for the model, so we can close this. And then we are going to the functions. So first of all, for the add function, we have a try and catch block at the beginning. Catch with an error. In the catch part, as this, it is the same as in the auth controller. So first we have the console log in the create job controller with the error message, and we are sending back a status of 500 with an internal server error as the message. Then in the try we have the const, so we are getting all of our variables. I will just copy them. So we're getting our job name, company name, the place, the link, if we apply it, and if it is remote, from our request.body. Then we are checking if all of those exist. So if job name, or with the pipe operators, if there's not a job name, or if there's not a company name, or if there's not a link, or is not a place, or if there's not a link, and the applied and remote, because we didn't set them to required in the job model, we don't have to check if they are if we have them, because we also can set the values for the entry to null. Then we return the status if something of those are missing, of those 4 variables, or 400, and we're saying JSON with the message of something like this: job and company name, place and link are required. And after that, we have to get the user ID. But because we've saved the user ID not in the request body, but in a request.user._id, we can't get them like the variables above. Then with the user ID, we are checking if the user ID, if it doesn't exist, we return again a status of 500 and the JSON with the message internal server error. Then we are saying const new job is equals to new job. So we have to import the model on top. Import job from /models/ job model.js. Then we are passing a JavaScript object into the model with the user ID, the job name, the company name, the place, the link, the applied, and the remote. And then we have to check again if the new job, if it doesn't exist, we return from 400 with the JSON of message invalid job data. After that, if that goes through, we have an await, because the new job, it has a function called .save, and that is an asynchronous function. So with this line, we are saving the new job to our database, and then we are responding with a status of 201. So that's the normal status when we create something. And we are sending back the new job. Then for the remove function, we are adding a try and catch block. Try, catch, and for the catch part, as always, we are console logging error in the delete job controller, and we are passing back the 500 internal server error. Then for the try part, first we are getting the job ID from the request.params. So you have to type it this way, otherwise it won't work. And then we are checking if it exists, and if it doesn't, we just return 500 internal server error. Internal server error. And then we are getting the exact job. So we're saying await job dot find by ID, because we have the job ID which we pass as an URL param, and we are adding it function as a parameter. Then we are checking if the job exists, and if it doesn't, we are sending back a 400 with job doesn't exist. Then, if it does exist, we delete the job. So we are saying deleted job is equals to await the job from above, which we defined. We are saying job.delete 1. So it just deletes 1, and we can say that because we are just finding 1, because we are passing down this individual ID. And then we are checking if the job got deleted, so deleted job. And then if it wasn't deleted, we are sending back an 500 with internal server error. And then we are saying response.status of 200.json with the message successfully deleted job. Then for the get by user ID function, we also have a try and catch block. Then for the catch part, you know the drill. We are just console logging the error and sending up back a 500 with internal server error. Then we are getting the user ID from the request.user._ID. If I could type it correct. Then we are checking. Oh, that's the wrong one. Then we are checking if the user ID exists, and if it doesn't, we are sending back a 500 with internal server error. Then we are trying to find the user in our database. User.find by ID. Then we are passing down the user ID. And then we are saying .select. And inside the brackets we are passing up a string, and we are saying minus password. so it doesn't get the password row from the user. That's just for safety measures. Then we are checking if it found a user. If it doesn't, we are saying internal server error, because to get the user ID or to access this endpoint, you have to be logged in. So there's some error with the with our API and not with the user doesn't exist. Then after that we are getting all the jobs, so jobs await, and then we are saying job dot find. We are not saying find one or find by ID. We are saying dot find, so it finds all of them. That's a list, and we are saying where the user ID is equals to the user ID. So we're getting the user ID from above, and then there's the row user ID for every job. And then we are checking if there are jobs. If there isn't, it is also an internal server error, because if there weren't any jobs in our database, then it would be an empty array, so it would still exist. So if it is null, then there's also something wrong with our API. And then lastly, we are saying response status and 200, and we are sending back in the JSON our jobs array. So this is it for the jobs router. In the next part, we are finalizing the API by adding our own custom authorization middleware. In this part, we will create our authorization middleware because we don't want to get access to our, for example, to our job routes if the user isn't logged in. So first of all, we are creating a new directory in the source directory, and it is called middleware. And inside of this, we will create auth.middleware.js, and we will export function called protect route. It is an asynchronous function. We are passing down the request, the response, and we are passing down a next function, which is a function solely for middlewares. So inside of this function, we have a try and catch block. And inside of the catch part, similar to the part in the controllers, we are logging an error in the protect route middleware, and we are passing back 500 with an internal server error. And then we say const token is equal to request.cookies.jwt. So this is our JWT token which we are getting from the cookies. And then we are checking if the token exists. And if it doesn't exist, we return 401 with the message unauthorized, no token provided. And then we will decode our JWT token, and JWT has an So first of all, we need to import the package. And JWT, so the package has a function called verify, and you pass the token and the JWT secret, which we also have to import. And it will give back a boolean if it's true or false. So then we are checking if it is false, then we return a response with the status of 401, and with the message it's the same one as in the token. And if it is the right token, we are getting the user. Await user dot find by ID. So we have to import the user. And find by ID. Then the token, because in the generate token function in our utils file, we are passing down the user ID. So the user ID, when we decode the token, we are getting the user ID. So we can say decoded dot user ID, and then we say select minus the password for safety reasons, and then we check if the user exists with 404, and the message user not found. And then we say request.user is equals to user, and because it is a middleware, and the middleware is between the API endpoint and the function from the API endpoint, we want to say next. So this next basically says we run all of this code, and then if it is finished, we are going next to either the next middleware or to the code for the API endpoint. And now we have our middleware, and now we want to add it to the routes. So you can either, if you want the middleware to be in front of every route, you can use the app.use. But for example, for the sign up login, you don't have to be already, so you can't already be logged in for these two. So we just want it for the logout. So we are basically saying the protect route, we are importing this, and then we are just add it like this. And now if you go to the logout, it will check if the cookie exists, and then you can log out. Because if the cookie doesn't exist, you can't log out because you are not logged in or sign up. And also the same for the check endpoint. And then for the job routes, this is for every job route, so you can either use the job router.use, or I will just add it like this, because we don't want the user to access our job endpoints if he isn't logged in. So this is everything for the API. For the setup in the frontend directory, first we need to go to the frontend directory in our command line, and then we are creating a wheat template, npm create wheat at latest, and then a space and a dot to create a template in the same directory. And then we want to choose React and JavaScript, and now we want to run npm install to install the dependencies of the template. Then we can run it to check if it is working. And you can see this is the template from wheat. So now we want to install some more dependencies. So first of all, we need React hot toast, we need React router, we need zustand, which is our state library, and Axios to make HTTP requests. Then we need Lucid React for some signs and stuff. And then we also need Tailwind CSS, and from Tailwind CSS d/wheat. And then we need Daisy UI at latest to get the latest version. After everything installed, we can delete some directories and files. So first of all, we are deleting the public folder, then the assets, the app.css, and in the app.jsx we can delete this, and the imports up here, everything. And inside of the return we also can delete everything and give back some div with test. Then inside there we can leave everything, and inside of the index.css we also delete everything. And now to use Tailwind CSS and Daisy UI, we have to import them in the index.css. So import Tailwind CSS, and then because Daisy UI is a plugin from Tailwind CSS, we have to say add plugin Daisy UI, and because we are using wheat and we also installed this Tailwind CSS/wheat plugin, we go into the wheat.config and import up here. We import Tailwind CSS from Tailwind CSS/wheat, and then we are adding this to the plugin array Tailwind CSS. It is a function. Save this, and now when we go back, we can see this is the test thing. And then if we want to check if Tailwind is working, we are adding a class name and saying the text is red 500. Save this, go back, and you can see the text is red. So in the next part we are setting up React router with the different routes and pages. For React router to work, we have to change some things in the main.jsx file. So first of all, we want to import the React DOM from React router, and we don't need the create root import. We can delete this one. And then we are saying react dom.create root. And then we are also creating a variable const root, and it is equal to document.getElement by ID root. And then we are adding the root back. Then we also need the browser router from React router. Import browser router. You can see it imported it up here. And then we are wrapping the app inside of the browser router. HTML tag. And we can save this. Yes, it's React router. The React DOM dash client. And now you can see there's the test back. So now we can go into the app.jsx and create the routes. So first of all, for the routes we have to import some things. So we have to import the routes, the route, and the navigate things from React-router. Then inside of the div we are saying routes, so the plural, and inside of the routes HTML tag we can add the individual route, and it is a self-closing tag. So every route has two main props. So first we have the path, which is the path which we want to add inside of the URL. So for the homepage it is just the slash, and then there's the element in which we will add the page later. So for the pages we will create a new directory inside the source, and we will say it's the pages. And inside of the pages we are adding three different pages. First of all we have the homepage.jsx, and we create inside there we create a React functional export component, and then we have the login page.jsx, and lastly we have the sign up page, and we save this. Then back to the app.jsx. Inside there we can say we want the homepage, and we need to add it like a React component, and we have to import it up here. And then we have two more routes, so we can just copy that and say one is the login and the other one is the sign up. Then we also change the homepage to login page and to the sign up page. So if we save this, you can see there's the homepage text from our homepage. And if we go up there in the URL and type /login, you can see it changes to the login page from our login. Then we are also adding a package called React.host. It's a React package for creating alerts, and for this we have to import the toaster. So we have to import toaster, which is a self-closing React component from React.host, and we add it under the routes. We say toaster and it is self-closing, and we save this. So this toaster is required in the basically in the root So we could edit in the app.jsx or in the main.jsx under the app. It wouldn't matter, but it is required in the root component. So we can create these alerts from inside of the homepage login and sign up page. Otherwise it won't work. So this is it for this part. In the next part we will create the sign up page. So we've installed Axios to make HTTP requests to our backend, and so we are adding a lib directory inside of our source directory, and inside of this we want to create an axios.jsx file and we want to import it. And then we are exporting a function called Axios instance, and it is equals to axios.create, and inside there we are adding a JavaScript object, and we are saying the base URL is equal, or basically we are checking if the base URL is equal to the development, and if it is, we are the base URL is http localhost 5001/API, and if it isn't, so when we deploy it, it is just /API because we are deploying back and front end on one deployment. So it has the same URL. So we are saying import.meta.env.mode is equals to development. If it is, it's http /localhost 5001. If it isn't, it's just /API. And then the next part is with credentials. So that's just for some security reasons we say it's true. So now we can call this Axios instance in every other file and make an HTTP request with it, because you don't want to make and have these different instances running at the same time. That's basically the same with the database in the backend, because why we created our own DB file, and why we don't call this connect function from Mongoose in every middleware and every file, because then we would have multiple open ports to Mongoose and it would be pretty bad. So now that we created our Axios, we want to create our zustand store. So we go inside our source directory and we are creating a new directory called store. And inside that we are creating a file called use auth.store.js. So zustand is a quite popular state management library. So we are importing create from zustand, and we are also importing our Axios instance from /lib/Axios, and we are also importing. So in the last part we added this toaster, and in the toaster we want to create some alerts, so we are importing toast from React hot toast. So now we want to create a store, which is basically a function in which we have a lot of variables, and we also want export this so we can exit it in different files. I will call it use auth store, and it is equal to create, which we imported, and inside of this create there's an arrow function, and there are two main methods in zustand which we have to pass down to this arrow function. The first one is set and the second one is get. So set is basically so we can set any state variable, and get is to get the value from it inside of this store. So for the auth store we just need set, so we are adding it to the arrow function, and then we have auth user, which is when we sign in and stuff, we set the signed in user to the auth user, so that's null. Oh yeah, we need to add normal brackets around this one, and yeah, I'm just done. So this will be the data for the signed in user, but because we are not signed in, it's just null. Then we want a state. It's a loading state, so is signing in or signing up, signing up, and it is false. So that's basically a state, so we can load something like a loading screen and stuff like that. And then in this part we are creating the sign up. So we are creating sign up, but we can't just create variables inside of a store, we can also create functions. So sign up is a function, it is an asynchronous function, and it has a parameter called data, and inside of this function, the first thing which we do is we set the is signing up. Is signing up, we set it to true, so we can render a spinner, and then we have a try and catch block. Inside of the catch, we have a toast dot error, and it will say error dot response dot data dot message. So what this does is we make a request to our API, and if the API gives back an error message, we catch the error and we're saying we want an alert. It is an error alert, and we say from the error, from the response, the data part, we will call the message. So this message is basically inside our controller. Every time when we say we are sending back in the JSON format this message, that's the message which we are getting in our store. And then we also have a finally part, and the last thing, if the try block was being executed, or the catch block, then we want to set the is signing up back to false, so it stops the spinner or the loading screen. Then inside of the try, the first thing which we do is an HTTP request. So it is always an await, because Axios is normally using asynchronous. So we're saying our access instance. Then it is a post request, because we are logging in, to /auth/signup, and we are passing the data to it. And then if the response is an error, it automatically goes into the error thing, so we don't have to make an if statement. Then we want to set the auth user to our response.data. And the last thing is we want to making show an error or rather an alert, a success alert, and it basically says something like account created successfully. In order to work, we now go back to the axios.js instance, and we set this environmental variable called mode, but we don't have an .env file in this frontend, so we need to create this .env, and then we have the mode, which at the moment is equal to development. Now we have the signup function, which should work, and now we can go and create the signup page. Now for the signup page, we first need to create some variables. So first we have the show password variable, and this variable is a boolean. It uses the useState hook from React, and with this variable we will implement that we will either show the password that they've typed in, or we censor it. Then we also have another variable called form data, which is also a use state, and inside of this there is a JavaScript object with the full name, email and password, and everything is an empty string. Then earlier we've created the useAuth store. Now we have to import the signup function and the is signing up variable. Store. We also have to import that. And from // store / auth store. And then we can start by creating the HTML structure. So first of all we have a div which has a class name, and it has the minimum height, the screen height, and it is a flex. Flex direction is a column. I could type flex direction. Flex is a column. We justify the items in the center, and center. It has padding of 6 on all sides, and on small devices the padding is 12. Then inside of this div we have another div. This also has a class name. The width is full, and the max width is the middle. Then we have the space, y-8, so we have a space at the y-axis. Then inside there's another div. It also has a class name, and this has text dash center, so the text is in the center, and we have margin bottom dash 8. Then we have another div, and it also has a class name, and it's a flex container. The flex direction is a column, items are in the center, and it has a gap of 2, and it's a group. So the group is basically a class from base UI. Then we have another div, and it also has a class name. The size is 12. It has rounded corners, and the background is primary divided by 10. It is a flex. The items are in the center, and so justify dash center, and then we have the group dash hover, and on the hover the background is primary. And inside of this div we will add an icon from Lucid React. It is the brief case business item. It also has a class name, which is equal to the size of 6 and the text dash primary, and it is a self-closing. Then we also have to import this briefcase, this icon. So we're saying brief case business from Lucid-React. We save this, and now if we go over to the sign up page, so now you can see this is the briefcase icon, and under this div we are adding an heading. Now we can say create account, and the heading has a class name, and it's text dash 2XL. The font is bold, and you have a margin top of 2 pixels. Then under the create account we have a p tag, and we can just add some text there, and it also has a class name, and the text the base content divided by 60, so that's basically the color. And then we go 2 divs down, and inside there we are adding a form. So that's the form for our entering all the data. So inside the form has on submit, and we are passing down a function called handle submit. So we have to create this first. So up there we can say const handle submit is an arrow function. We are passing down the context from the form, and we can just leave it like this. Then the form also has a class name, so we can say class name, and it has a space y-6. Then inside the form we have one div, and it is called, so the class name is form dash control. That's a CSS class from base UI. Then we have label. It has the class name label, also from base UI. Then inside of this label there's a span element, which says full name, and the span element also has a class name. Also has a class name called label dash text font dash medium, and then beneath the label we are adding another div which has the class name of relative, and inside of this div there's another div which also has a class name absolute, and then it has inset of dash y dash 0. The left it has nothing, 0. Then heading left 3, flags, items dash center, and the pointer dash events dash none. Then inside of this div there is an icon from Lucid React. It's the user icon. You have to import it. It has a class name, and the class name is size dash 5 text dash base dash content divided by 40, and it is self-closing. Then we have an input beneath the div. It is self-closing. Inputs are always self-closing. And the type is text. It has a class name. The class name is inside of curly brackets. So we have input dash bordered w dash full, and padding left of 10. Then the placeholder, I'm inserting Chondo, so that basically tells the user how to forward their input. Then the value is form data dot full name. So that's basically when there's an error or something and we refresh the page, the value, so the input, the value which the user inputs is still there. And then we have the onChange event. That's an error function. We are passing down our context, and then we are calling the setFormData. And what we are saying, we are deconstructing the form data, so dot form data, and then we are taking the full name and setting the full name to e.target. So the e is the context from the input which we are passing down, the target is the input, and then we are saying from the target the value. So now every time when the user changed one thing in the input, he capitalized the letter or something, it will be stored up there in the form data. Then beneath this div, these two divs, we are adding another div. It also has the class name form control, and now we can copy the label from above and just change the text from full name to email, and we can also copy the div beneath the email beneath the label from the full name. Copy this and paste it beneath the label. So now if we save this, yeah. So the error was that there were curly brackets around the form data and set form data, but there should be the other ones. So now you can see that's our login. And now we have to change the user to another symbol. The symbol is the mail symbol from Lucid React. You have to import it, and then down there and then down there the type will be email. So on your smartphone it will open a special email field, and then the class name will be the same, the placeholder. You can add something like eu@example.com. Then the value will be the email. And for the set form data, it's the same. We are deconstructing the form data, but we set the email, not the full name. So now we will go to divs down and add another div with a class name of form control, and inside of this div we can just copy the label again, paste it in, change the email to password, and then beneath the label there's div with the class name of relative, and inside of this div we add another div, and then we will add the symbol. It is the log symbol from Lucid React. Also has a class name with the size of 5 and text dash base dash content divided by 40. That's the symbol. And then the class, the div, which wraps the log symbol. There's also a class name. It is the same class name as in the other ones. And then we have beneath the div, we have our input with the type is in curly brackets, and it is an if statement, so if show password, and if it is true then we will set it to text, and if it isn't we will set it to password. And so the text is basically the plain text, and the password are these dots which are normally for the password field. And then the class name, also in curly brackets, is input dash bordered w dash full, so the width is the full width, and pl dash 10. So now you can see there's our input field, and then we have beneath the class name we have our placeholder, and the placeholder are basically these dots. Dot. You can Google them, like input placeholder password dots or something, and you find them. Value, the value is the form data dot password, and the onChange event we are passing down to the set form data, and inside we are deconstructing the form data, and the password is equals to e.target.value. Then beneath the import we are adding a button, and the type of the button is button. The class name is absolute insert dash y dash 0, the right dash 0, I'm padding right dash 3, oh the right dash 3 not right, and then we have flex items dash center. Then the onClick event, the onClick event is an arrow function again, and we are calling the set show password function, and we negate the show password value. So at the moment it is false because it is the normal state, and now if we click the button it will negate the false to true, and if it is true and we click the button it will negate it to false. Then inside of the button we are adding some JavaScript code. So JavaScript code, you can add it in a React component with these curly brackets. So we have the curly brackets, and we are now using the is signing up. So that's a boolean from our use also. We're saying if this is true, then we want to render the loader2 image from Lucid React, and it has a class name. The size is 5, and we animate to spin it. And beneath that, we're adding the text loading ... And if it isn't, then we are rendering the text create account. Oh yeah, so the button is outside of the div. Yeah, something's wrong. Yeah, completely outside. I'm just really, yeah, I have to just okay. And now move for the front. And then beneath the form we add another div, and there's a class name, which says text dash center, and it has a p tag, with the class name, and the text, color, the base, content divided by 60, and then it says already have an account, question mark. Then we're adding an empty string, and then beneath we are adding a link from Lucid React, not from Lucid React, from the link is from React Router DOM. So link from React Router DOM, and we are saying 2 is equals /login, and it has a class name, and we're saying it is a link, and it has the primary link header. Then it isn't a self-closing tag. So now inside of the link we are adding the text sign in. Save this. There's the link. If we click it, you can see it goes to the login screen. So inside the button for the input, so beneath the password import there's the button, and inside there's an if statement. So if show password is true, we have the icon from Lucid React I off with a size of 5 and a text space content-40, and if it isn't, we have the I, so this right there with the class name, size, and so on. And then if you click this, you can see it changes to I off. So now that's the HTML part, but we have to add some logic to our handle submit. So the first thing is the e.prevent default. So when we submit a form, so with this on submit, and we have a submit button, then it will, the first thing which it will do is reload the site, but we don't want that. So these prevent default will stop that behavior. Then we have const success. So we are validating the form. So we're saying validate form. This function we have to create. So up there we are saying const validate form. It's an arrow function. Right. And then beneath this success we are saying if success is equals to true, we will sign up, and we are passing the form data to it. So this sign up is the form from the function from the use auth store, and the form data is in the context. So no, it's not in the context, it's the use state up here. Now for the validate form. For the validate form we have a lot of if statements. So I will copy them. I will copy the function, and then I will explain it to you. So the first thing which we check is if there's no form data dot full name, then we will return a toast error with the full name is required. That's the message. This .trim function basically removes all spaces in the full name. Then we are checking for the email. We also remove the spaces. And if there isn't an email, we return the email as required. Then for the email format, this is some special sign code. So what it basically says is this first and this last slash, that's the beginning and the end. So let's define this. Then the backslash, capital S and the plus, it says some string. Then there must be an @ sign. Then there must be another some kind of string. That's that part. Then there is a dot. And then after the dot, there's another string. And then we test this, and this test function will return either true or false. And because we negate it, if this returns false, we will return invalid email format, an error. Then for the password, we will trim it, and if there isn't a password, then we will say password is required, and then we will check the length. And if all of these go through, then we return true, and it will go into the sign up form data. And this toast.arrow, we have to import it at the top. So you can just import toast from reactor toast. So then we can check it. So we can say test space test add test dot test. So this is required. This add and the add and the dot, and then the password is something. So you can see now. You can try turn it on and off, and then if we create account, you can see it is loading, and now it's stopped. So the loading spinner is signing up, and then we can check in our database under the users. You can so oh yeah, I'm just done. We need to go into the backend, and we have to start it. Yeah. Okay. So now if we create account, oh, you can see we get an error message. That's not good. So the log is up there. We can refresh it and test it again. Okay. And not found. We have to check the axials. Yes, we have to add the API. Save that. It says account created successfully, and if we go to our cluster and we will refresh it, you can see there's the test. So now that the sign up works, we have to go to the routes so in app.jsx. So now that the sign up is working, we're going to the app.jsx. So now if we sign up, we don't get redirected to the dashboard or to the homepage. So we have to implement that. So first of all, we try to get from the useauth store the auth user from useauth store equals Yeah, we import it. Import use auth store from this, and then we can go into the element, and we are making an if block. So if there's an auth user, if it exists and it has any value, then we are redirecting to the home page for the home page route. And if it doesn't, we navigate to the /login. So what it basically says, when you are not logged in and the user is null, you can't access the home page, and you are going to be redirected to the login. And then for like login and the sign up, it's basically the other way around. We are negating the auth user. So we're saying if there's an auth user, if there isn't an auth user, we are going to the login page, and if there is an auth user, we are navigated to the home page. Because if you're logged in, you don't have to access the login or the sign up page, so that's basically the same. And then navigate to the slash. Now, if we save this, it auto refreshes and it takes us to the home page. And if we try to go to the login, yeah, it lets us log in there because we're not really finished in the app.jsx. Because we have to finish. We have to add some things. So you can see in the tab under application, under cookies, you can see the JWT token, which is the token and if it will just be there when we are logged in. So for this, and on the app, we are using the use effect hook from React. You have to import that one. And then what we are doing there, the use effect hook will be run when we visit the website. So if it loads the page, the app, the first time it will run this use effect. And in there, we will say that it will run the check auth. What this does, this is a function from the use auth store which we have to first of all import and create. So we go to the use auth store and we will create the check auth. And the check auth from the use auth store, it is an asynchronous function. It doesn't have any parameters, and the first thing is a try and catch block. With it also has a finally at the end. So in the end, we are setting a specific variable. This variable is checking auth false. So this is checking auth. We also need to create it up there. It's checking auth. It's a boolean and the standard value is true. Because when we load the page the first time, it will always check the auth, so it can be, so the standard value can be true. And then in the catch, we will console log error in check all plus the error, and then we will set the auth user to now. And instead of the try block, we are making a request with our access instance. It's a GET request, and the GET request will go to the /auth/check part. So this is basically the auto login. And then, if this goes through, we are setting the auth user to response .data. Data. So that's the check all. And then back in our main.jsx, app.jsx, not main.jsx. We also have to import our checking auth, and we want to render a spinner again if the auth check is still running. So we are saying if is checking auth, and with two and signs, and there's no auth user, we will return this loader. This loader is signed from Lucid React, and the div has the class name flags, items-center, justify-center, h-screen, so it has the height of the screen, and it just centers everything. And then the loader has the size of 10, and it spins. We save this, and as you can see, there was a little spin. So if we refresh it, you can see there's a little spin. And then we also want a header. So for example, for the logout and stuff like that. So we are going to our source directory, and we are creating a components folder. And inside there we are creating a header.jsx. We are creating a React functional component. And so the header is just a lot of HTML. I will just copy this and then explain it to you. So this is our header. It uses the link from React Router. You have to import that. It uses the briefcase business signed from Lucid React, and it uses the logout from Lucid React. And we also need the auth user and the logout function from the useAuth store. So we have the header, and we have all of these CSS classes. The background is 100. It has a border of B. The border has the color of base 300. The header is fixed to the top. Width is full, and all of this other stuff. And then we have a link to our homepage, and inside of the link there's this briefcase business sign and the name job tracker. And then the more interesting part beneath the div is this if statement here, and we are checking if there's an auth user. If it exists and it is not null, then we are rendering a button which has the onClick function logout and says logout. So basically we are just rendering this button if there's an existing auth user which we can log out. So now we have to add this header to our app.jsx. So we're going above the routes and we are adding our header. So the header will be rendered in every route because it is above the route. So we will save that, and there's an use auth. Yeah, we have to import the use auth store. So import use auth store. Save this, and now you can see there's our job tracker, which will link us to the SAM, and the logout, which we didn't create yet. So let's go and create our logout function. So the logout function is an asynchronous function. It has no parameters, and it starts with the try and catch block. In the catch, we are creating a toast, an error toast, with the error message which we get from the backend. Then we are awaiting our Axios instance, and the Axios instance makes a post request to our /auth/logout API endpoint, and then we are setting the auth user to null, and then we make a toast which says logged out successfully. Now we can test this. So as you can see, there's the logout. So our auth user is not null, so we are logged in. Then if we click on the logout, you can see we are redirected to the login. We had the toast, and the logout button is gone. And if we try to get to the home page, it won't let us. It will always redirect us to the login page. So now we want to create the login page. So for the login page, we need our login function in the use auth store. So we are creating our login function. It is an asynchronous function. It has the data as a parameter, and the first thing is we are also adding a variable called is logging in, and the standard thing is false. So the first thing is setting the is logging into true, so we can render a spinner. Then there's a try and catch block, and a finally block at the end. Oh, I did it wrong. Finally block in the end. Instead of the finally block, we set the is logging variable to false, and in the catch block we are toasting the error message if there is an error. Then for the try block, we are making a response to with our Axios, so we are awaiting it with our Axios instance, and it is a post to /auth/login, and then we are setting the authenticated user to our response.data, and then we are toasting as success something like logged in successfully. Save this. So now we can close the use auth store. That's everything for the use auth store, and the header and also the app.jsx is finished. So now we are going to the login page, and for the login page I will just copy the HTML code again, because it's just a lot of HTML and I don't have to everything. So we save this. There's an error again. What's going on? Failed to load resource. Request failed. Request failed. API /auth/check 1. Yeah. So these errors are the error code because we are not logged in, and because we refresh the page, so they are using the UC flag hook with the check auth, and we are not logged in, so we're getting a 401 error back because we use the protect route middleware. So now for the login page, for the HTML, so we are using the briefcase business, so we have to import that one, briefcase business, okay. Import briefcase business from Lucid React. Then we have to also import the mail icon, then the log icon, from Lucid React, and then the I and the IOF for our password input, then the loader, the loader 2 version, and then the link from React router. Okay, then link import link from React router, save that, and so now we can go through the code. So first of all, we have, similar to the login page, we have the briefcase and then the heading beneath that and the P tag with sign in into your account. Then we have, in this, we have our input, our email input, which sets the form data, which we have to create. So this variable we have to create. So we're going up there, and we're saying const form data set form data is equals to use state hook from React, and inside there we are, it's the same thing as in the sign up with email and password. Then, which we can also create, we can create the show password and the set show password. That's the same thing as in the sign up page, with, so we can censor or don't censor the email, the password, the email. And then we also have the function handle submit. It's an asynchronous function. We are passing down the E and handle submit. And we also have to import two things from the useAuth store. First of all, our login function, which we created earlier, and then the is logging in equal useAuth store import use auth store from dot slash store slash use auth store. JS. So this part up here is this. The h1 and the p tag, they are missing some styling. So the h1 gets a class name. From text to XL it is bold and it has a margin top. And the p tag also gets a class name with the text with a text color. So now it looks much more similar to the login page. Then this email file, we have the normal email. For the input we have the value from the form data, and on the change we are setting the form data. We are deconstructing the form data and then setting the email. Then for the password, the normal placeholder is the stocks. The value is the form data.password, and on change we are setting the form data by deconstructing it. That's the same as in the email. Then beneath that we have a button, and on click we are negating the value of the show password in the set password function. So that's the same concept as in for the sign up page, with if it's false it gets true, and if it's true it gets false. And then depending on the show password we are rendering the IAuth or the I sign from Lucid React inside of the button. So that's basically that. And then beneath the whole div there's a submit button, and now we have the is logging in from our use auth store, and if that's true, then we are rendering the loader. So now we can test that. We created this user earlier, so you can see it still works. Sign in. Okay. Yeah. So you can see this works, but we have to implement the handle submit. So as the same in the sign up page, we have to prevent the default reload. Prevent default. And then we are using the login function and passing down the form data. Set this, test again, sign in, invalid credentials. Yeah, you can see why the credentials are wrong. We forgot to pass the data to the thing. So now if we refresh and we sign in, we can see logged in successful. There's the successful response, and we are automatically redirected to our homepage with the logout button. So now that we have the authentication authorization stuff ready to go, in the next part we will create the homepage. In this part we are creating the homepage with the functionality to create, add, delete jobs. So first of all we need to create two components. In the components directory we are creating the add field.jsx component, and we are creating a job card component, and save this. And then we are creating a new store. Inside of the store directory we are creating the use job store, and we are importing create from zustand. And we are also importing our Axios instance from /lib. If I could type it /Axios. And we are last import is the toast from React hot toast. Then we export our use job store we created, and in this we have to use the set and the get function from zustand, and then in normal brackets and curly brackets. Now we have two variables. First of all, we have the jobs, which default value is an empty array, and the is job loading, which is default to false. Then we have two functions. First we have get, which is an asynchronous function, and we're not passing anything to it. No, not an equal. Yep. And then we have the add function, which is asynchronous. We are passing data to it. And lastly, we have the remove, which is also asynchronous. We are also passing data to it. So that's everything, every function or variable. And then for the get, first thing is setting the is job loading to true. And then we have a try and catch and a finally block. So in the finally we are setting the is loading job loading to false again. That's for our spinner. Then in the catch we have a toast.error, and we are toasting the error.response response.data.message, and in the try block we are making a response with our await Axios instance. It is a .get it uses the get HTTP method to our /job/get endpoint. And then we are setting the jobs variable to our response.data. Then for our add. So for the add variable, add function, the first thing is we are getting the jobs, which this job variable, we are getting it by using the get function, which we pass down up there. Then we have a try and catch block, and in the catch part we are, as always, toasting our error message, and in the try we have const response is equals to await Axios instance dot post to our /job/add, and we are adding the data. And then we are setting our jobs variable to an array, and this array we are deconstructing the jobs which we have already, and then at the end add our response.data data. And so what this job add endpoint, it will send us back our job data, which we sent to them, and then this adds it to the database, and this adds it to our list, which we are rendering. And lastly, for the remove function. So in the remove, we are also getting our jobs array with our get function, and then we have our try and catch block. And as always in the catch, we are toasting any error message which we get. And there in the try, we have a response. We are awaiting our request with our access instance. And this part we are using the delete HTTP method. And now we're using backticks as string for a string. So we can use variables inside of the string. So the thing is, the endpoint is job/delete/did, and we are passing down the ID and right here, and the variable, you can access it by using a $ in curly brackets and then saying data. Then we want to update the jobs which we have in our array. So there are two ways. The first thing is we can send every job which is in our database for this user. That would be a little bit much data. Then we could make it retime with sockets, or we can just delete it in the database and then delete it a second time in our jobs. So we will use this third because it's more simplistic and we are not making so much requests and sending so much data to our API. So we are saying jobs.filter. The .filter method is a native JavaScript method for arrays. And in the filter, we are saying we get so we are iterating over every item in the array. And the item is, we call it basically job in there. And then we are saying we filter. So filter will remove any item which in which we will pass through to it. So we're saying, yeah, we take the job, and if the job._id, so that's basically the job ID, is not equal to the data, that's the job ID which we want to delete, we are adding it to this new array. So now we have two arrays. First, the jobs, where every job is in the array, and the updated jobs, where just the jobs are which we want to keep. And then, lastly, we are setting the jobs array. We are setting it to our updated jobs array. So basically, we will replace every job with every job but the job which we wanted to delete. So that's for the use job store, you can delete that one. So now for the add main field, we have to add it to the home page. So we will do this. So there's some styling to it. I will just copy it because it doesn't have any logic at all. So the only thing which we have to import is the main field. So import main, not main field. We called it add field. Add field, and that's just, oh yeah, so for React to check that it is a React functional component, the first letter must be a capital. So we have to change that in the add field and change it here. now if we save this, you can see there's the add field, and this border and stuff is this styling which we applied. So now we can go into the add field and create that one. So for the add field, we first have to import some things. So first we import the use job store from /store / use job store.js. Import, I could type it right. And then we also want to import our job card. Job card from /job card.jsx /job card. .jsx. Yeah, inside there we also have to make the first letter capital of your function. And then inside of the main field, we can create some things. So first of all, we have to import our 3 functions, remove, add, and get, and our variable jobs. So we first have to import that one from the use job author, and then we want to use the use effect hook from React use effect, and we want to load the data from our API when the person visits the site. So if the site is rendered, we want to get the data. And now you have to be careful. You have to add this empty array at the end, because otherwise the use effect will call this unlimited and then will crash your site. This empty array basically says you have to load it once. And yes, then we have the function handle submit. It's an asynchronous function. We are passing down our e. So that's basically to a function which will be called when we want to add a new job. And now we will have another variable which is called job list, and for now it's just an empty array. Now I will copy all of it and explain it to you. It's not that much. So what the fuck? Here. So that's the whole UI. We have this form right here, which is this darker box at the top. For the form on the submit, we have the handle submit. Then we have a field set in it with a lot of, that's basically this UI, all the functions. Then we have, in this part, we have all of the inputs where we will add our job data. Then we have these 2 checkboxes if we apply it for the job or it has remote opportunities. And then we have the submit button at the end. Then the second part is this part down there. It uses a table from this UI, and here in the head we are specifying the columns of the table. So first we have an empty column Then we have the job name, the company name, place, link, applied, remote, or the last is the delete, where the delete button is for every item. Then in the body, we are running our job list. So for the job list, we are right here. We are saying jobs.map. So the jobs is the variable from our use job store, and the .map is a function which every array has, and you're going over every item and you're filtering out the job and the index of the item, and then you're saying add this, and now we add not the item to the job list, but we are adding a React component to the job list. So it is rendering the components. So the component is the job card. Save this. Now we have to create the job card. So I will just copy the HTML and then explain it to you again. So inside of the job card, we have to add some props. Props are variables which you can pass down to a React component. So we're passing down the variable job, we're passing down a button function, and we're passing down a number. So that's the data from the job, that's the delete function, and that's the index. So we have the first row is the number plus 1. So we're getting the index and saying that's the first job. Then there's the job name, company name, place. So we are accessing the data by .place, for example. Then we have a link, which has the job link. The target is blank, so it will open the link in a new tab and website. Then for the applied. The applied is a little bit tricky, because for the checkbox, if the checkbox is not clicked, so it's like this, and you submit the form, the checkbox are undefined. So that's one problem, because we can't really work with JavaScript in JavaScript with undefined variables. But we will fix that in the handle submit function. So the handle submit function, we will create an applied and a .remote variable, and they are booleans. So now we are checking the job.applied. If it is true, we are rendering this label, and it is a green label because we have the status from days UI, and it says status-success. And if it is not, then we are rendering a red one, status-error. And that's basically the same for the remote. And then for the delete button, so we have the onClick function here, and we are saying, we call the button function, which is the prop up there, which we are passing down, and we are giving the button function our job._id, which is the job ID. So now that we have this, we go back, and now we have to call the props in the when we create the job list. So to do that, we are calling it, so we are saying the job is the job which we are getting from in front there, and then we have the number, which is the index, and then we have our button function, which is our remove function. And then in React, when you're using this .map and you're passing, and the list contains React components, you have to give every component a unique ID. So the ID is called key. So every component has this, otherwise you are getting an error. And for this list, we're just using the index as a key. So we save this. And Now for the handle submit. So the handle submit, we first want to prevent the default as always. Default. I can't type. We want to prevent the default reload. Then we are getting the form data. And we are creating a new form data object. And we are adding from our the target to it. And then we are extracting our job name, company name, place, and link from our form data, which form I have to type it. Form data which we created up there. And then we are creating a new job. And we are passing down these variables. And for the applied and remote, it's a little bit special, because when it is checked, we will get the value on, and if it is not checked, we don't get any value, so it's undefined. So now we are checking form data.get applied, so we are getting the value. And if there is a value, so if there's the on value, we will set it to true, and if there's nothing, so it is undefined, we are setting it to false. So now we've made from a quite complicated variable a boolean. And then we have a try and catch block with an error handling. Yeah. And in the end, we are just, in the catch part, we are just console logging failed to send message, and we are adding the error. Then for the try part, we are awaiting our add function and passing down the new job as an argument. And then we want to reset the form. To do that, we are saying target e.target, so that targets the whole form, dot reset, which sets every input in every form element to null. So we save that one. Now we can test that. We can say test. We can say we applied, but we didn't. It doesn't have any remote opportunities. We can say submit, and you can see there's our test, which was the job name, company name, place, our link. If we click it, it will open /test because we didn't specify a specific link. Then we said we applied, so it is a green dot. We said we didn't. It doesn't have any remote opportunities, so it is red. And if we go to our MongoDB, to our project, and go inside of the jobs, you can see this is the job which we created. You can see it is applied, it doesn't have any remote opportunities. And now we can delete this one. There's a typo from me. It's data. And now it worked. So if we go back and we refresh, you can see the job is gone. And we can test another one. So now we can say, yeah, it has remote, but we didn't apply it. It works. Delete. So refresh. There's the job. Delete it. Now we have the functionality, but it doesn't look quite good. So we are using Daisy UI. So Daisy UI has a lot of themes. You can look them up on their website. So we will implement one theme. We go in the index.css, add some curly brackets, and then we say themes, and we are importing the coffee theme. You can import any theme you want. Now it looks different, but we have to go to the app.jsx and add to the div. We can say data-theme, and we are setting it to coffee. And save this, and now you can see it looks totally different. And you can go to the daisyui.com website, and when you go to themes on the left hand side, there are a lot of themes, and to import them you just go on the index.css. You can add it behind it, synthwave, save that, go here, change that, save that, and now you can see we have a different theme. So that's all for the website. In the next part we will change some little bits, add it to our GitHub repo, and then deploy it on render. For the final step, we are finishing up the app with some touches. So first of all, you can see up there's still the white plus React title. We don't want that. We want our own one. So we go into the index.html in the title tag. You can change it to whatever you want. You can just saying job tracker, save that. Now there's job tracker. Also the icon, that's this part. You can add your own icon if you want, or you can just delete it. I will do that. Now you can see the icon is gone. Then we stop both, and we go in the root directory, and we want to npm init a package.json file. So this one, package.json. Inside there we want two scripts. First we want a build script, so we can build the whole application. And then we want a start script, so we can start to run it. In the build script, the first thing which we want to do is we want to install every dependency from the backend. So to specify that we want to install the dependency from the backend, we can say -- prefix backend. Then we can add another command with using two signs. We want to install every dependency from the front end, so prefix front end. And then we want to say npm run build -- prefix front end. So this build command, it is basically, so it optimizes the React app. If we go into our package.json, there's the build command. And then for the start command, we are saying npm run start -- prefix backend. So normally, if you have a front end and a back end, you would have to deploy them separately. So you have one back end deployment and one front end deployment. But in this project, I will connect them, so we just have to deploy one thing. So for the start, we don't have this in the package.js yet. So under the dev, we are adding the start script, and we are saying node source / index.js. Save that. Now, because we are uploading the whole thing to GitHub, we don't want to push the whole node module folder. So what we can do is we can go into the root and we can add a .gitignore file, and every file which is mentioned inside of this, it won't upload it to GitHub. So in the front end we already have one, so you can just copy this, paste it up there, and then in the end we can add a .env. This is really important because those are our environmental variables and you don't want them to be on GitHub. Now we go and init our Git repo for this project. So we can type in git init. So now you can see in Visual Studio Code we have this. And then we can say git add dot. That's basically we add the changes and the dot is every change. So we added every change. Then we are saying we commit every change, commit -m, and then you can give in your the committer name, something like project completed, and enter this. And now you can see we've committed everything. Then we have to go over to GitHub and create a new repo. You can say something like job application tracker tuto advanced. Then if it is something for your portfolio, I probably make the repo public. I will just make it private. Then you can leave this everything and just create the repo. Then you will copy this URL from the repo. Just click there or copy it like this. And then we want to connect the repo from GitHub and the repo which we initiated locally. So we are saying git remote add origin, and then our link. And then we want to create a branch, git branch -m master. And then we want to push our changes, git push -u origin master. So now we wait. It said it pushed everything, so we can go over to our repository, refresh, and there you can see that's our whole project. Now we need to change something in the backend. So we have in the backend and the frontend are still not connected. To do that, we go in the index.js and we import a package and we import path from path. That's a JavaScript package, built-in one. And we are going here and we also need to create a variable. I will call it __ dir name, and we will use path dot resolve. So that will give the path to the index.js file. And then we have an if statement, and we say if node env is equal to production, we can say app.use. So, and we say express.static. So with express.static you can load and serve static files like HTML, images, something like that. And you can say path.join. And now you are merging together two paths. So the first name is the dir name, and then the /frontend/dist folder. So that's the frontend/dist folder is the build ready to deploy version of our React app. And then we are creating a new route with app.get and we're saying everything. So every route is with the request and response, and for every route we are sending back response send file. We are sending back a file which we loaded up there in the express static, and we're saying path.join the dir name // front end dist in the dist folder and the index.html. Now we save this, push it to GitHub, and the message is something like connected front and backend, commit and push. Now you can see that's it. Then we can go to render.com. You can create yourself an account. Then you can go and add a new static site. It's not a static site, it's a web service, sorry. Then you can choose this repo which you created. Now it is uploading to your whole repo to render. Then you can something like job tracker. Then you're saying it is node master. This you don't have to the build command. We have to change that to npm run build, and the start command is npm run start. Then you want to choose the free plan, and now we want to add the environmental variables from our project. So we are going back into the .env file. We copy those four in back to this, add them, and then yes, that's all we need. Then for the JWT secret, so secret isn't a very safe thing in any way, so that's like using password for your password. So you can generate yourself a really good key on this website, jwtsecret.com/generate. I will link this in the description. And then you can specify the length. I will say 23. Generate. Copy this and paste it instead of the secret. Add variable. So now you can see that those are all the variables, and deploy web service. Now you can see those are the logs. So first of all, it is cloning the repo. Then it checks the last commit. And then it is running our build command. And then it runs our start command. So here it built the React web app. Then it is uploading the build, and it is deploying it. Okay, there's an error. Okay, so if you're getting still an error, you can just reinstall every package: express.env, mongoose, course, cookie parser, JSON Web Tokens, bcrypt.js, and nodemon, and then commit it. Manual deploy it, and now if you see, there's your URL for your service, so you can open that one, and there's an error. So you have to change the node env to production. I forgot that one. Save, rebuild, and deploy. There is another error which is quite important. So if there is not a job in the database for the user, the jobs which we set here will not be an array. So there is an error with the jobs.map function in the add field component. So first we check if the response is an array, and if it is, we set the data, and if it isn't, we are setting it to an empty array. So now we will push that change, and we go back to our render and check the newest deploy. So now you can see it is running again. We refresh it, and you can see we are directly to the directed to the home page, because under the applications tab in the cookies, there's no cookie. If we go to login, so we are logged in already, and if we log out, Authorized because hier in den Dingens nicht drin, aber ich kann mich nicht einloggen, weil es irgendein Konzept der gibt. Post. Check all. And now you can see this is your website. If you like this video, please subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment, and see you soon. If you like the video, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and see you soon.